it's Amanda. Welcome to my channel. So baby number 3 is actually due today. It is March 26th, my due date. And there are just a lot of thoughts going around in my head. Other than being terrified of labor for the 3rd time, I'm not one of those people who thinks child delivery is beautiful. It hurts like a mother, it's messy, and it's destructive, at least in my experience. So in addition to wondering how I'm going to manage 3 kids when I'm only now getting used to having 2 under my care all day, now that I stay at home all day with them, I'm having other concerns. But let me get to my first and seemingly frivolous thought. I am very disappointing that it will soon be time to take my hair out. This is a hair channel still, uptight curls and all, so let me start there. It has been such a pleasure having wash days essentially take as long as it takes to deep condition my hair. 12 minutes or so to shampoo and apply the deep conditioner on one side, and then 15 to 20 minutes or so on the other just to rinse and apply a leave-in and an oil. Take into account that I dawdle like crazy in the shower. Sometimes I don't actually have Aiden and Layla in the bathroom with me, and that's pretty much my one independent moment a day, so my showers can take a little bit long. After rinsing out the deep conditioner, I wrap it up in a microfiber towel to sop up any extra moisture, and then when I decide I'm done, I tie it up in a silk scrunchie in either a bun or a ponytail, and that's been it, and it has been glorious. This is what I'm rocking today. I actually sort of impromptu, because I was like, it's my due date. Do I want to get caught up in this? But I'm like, this baby doesn't seem to actually be coming anytime soon. So I washed my hair this morning. Just stayed in the shower and like washed my face, shaved my legs, because I hadn't done that in like 4 months. My hair on my legs grows very, very slowly. And, bathed and all that kind of stuff. So I had it in for maybe like 15, 20 minutes, and then I just rinsed it out. I didn't do the whole like sitting down with heat thing. But yeah, I just like washed my hair today, and it's crazy. This being said though, I recognize I'm only doing this now because I'm in sort of like a holding period until the baby's born and don't want to go into labor amid a massively long wash date in a state where I'm not comfortable calling it a day and just like dropping everything and going to the hospital. It's been fun, albeit not my best look, and I'm sorry to let this go regardless. I'm going to at least keep it in until I've recovered. That's probably like another 1 to 2 weeks after delivery if births 1 and 2 are any indication. So I still have another couple of weeks in this, but as soon as I'm recovered, I'll be finishing up my curl origin review with a week 3 protective style. That'll be like my braided puff. I think I've only done it once at this point. I may wear my braid out for a week, but that won't be a video. It's just that I've had these braids in for so long, I want them to come out and live in their glory. The braids have been fun, but spring is approaching and I'll have to take the kids places. With the weather being so nice, I'd like to wear my hair in a way that makes me feel better and less of a sweatpants and big sweatshirt mode, which is a whole mood I've been sporting for the last several months. So I guess everything good has to come to an end, right? So yeah, I'm due today, and that's where my head is regarding my hair, and that's what's on my mind right now. I recognize I didn't really introduce the point of this video, apologies, and I think that's because there isn't really one. I'm just checking in with you, and since there is no hair video lined up, and because I don't have time for therapy right now, this, talking to you, is my outlet. So many of you are like friends at this point, so we're just chatting here, and I'm gonna do some unloading because sometimes it's a good thing to do. So on top of this break I've taken from my hair, I've been finding recently it's hard to give my hair real serious thought or consideration, or consider all that important. And this is in general relation to the dumpster fire that is the world right now. Trying to navigate everything going on while having children to take care of and molding them, while also being incredibly cautious, because I'm incredibly cautious by nature, and in addition required to be incredibly cautious by circumstance these days. We're possibly on the brink of war. Who knows what's going to happen? Despite what the CDC and seemingly New Yorkers in general seem to be saying, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, or at least it is still a very real pandemic for the immunocompromised and those with children under 5. My sister's immunocompromised and I have children under 5. Thank goodness the shots for 6 months to 2 years should be out sometime in April, but then I'll have a newborn and I'll have to keep him isolated and safe for 6 months until he has his vaccine. Thank goodness again that it's going to be spring soon and summer, so he can at least go outside and he should be able to have a life until he gets vaccinated in probably September or October. Which is fine because, again, in my experience with my kids, they don't do much for the first several months. Layla didn't do anything for like 11 months. Aiden was a bit more active, but we'll see what happens with this one. But for the next few months at least, he's going to be like he's going to be just like a log. So, I mean, he can come and sit in his car seat while I take the animals to the park. Yes, I do call my kids animals. saw my last video. And to go off topic for a second, I also call Mia our bad dog animal. It's funny because I have always called the three of them by the same names. Namely, Layla and Mia have always had the same name because they're both female. And when it's gender neutral, all three of them have the same name because it's just easier. Layla and Mia are both BBG, short for baby girl. Whereas Aiden, I don't call BBG because he's not a girl. Getting back on track here, if there is such a thing in this video, there's the current war that's going on that may or may not spread to the US, the pandemic. Then on the home front, I have a 2.5-year-old who has been home since she was 6 months, who is now a real person, needs real education, and to make her first friend, to start having a life, all while staying safe in a situation where she essentially can't go anywhere indoors other than to doctor's appointments. She needs to start doing activities like soccer and gymnastics because I really think she'd like gymnastics and all the things children who aren't in daycare all day, could be doing. I'm confident I can make this happen, but it's the juggling that's making it so hard. Given I'm now, again, as I've mentioned multiple times, homeschooling Aiden, it's harder because he gets priority when it comes to the education, the activities, and the doing things. Because in general, he's of school age, and I can take him to places during Layla's nap, and there's more of a requirement to have more experiences. That brings me to Aiden. I had actually meant to make my second video following my first one, where I opened up about how I'm doing about Aiden, because he's been a whole topic himself. He's been having some social issues, and I was in the process of trying to sort those things out when I put out that first video. I won't go into it too much because maybe he'd like privacy. I don't know, maybe he wouldn't. We can't all be open books like me. But anyway, in a nutshell, he's been experiencing intense social anxiety, and I have applied for, and it was a while ago now, and it's finally approved for what you call a 504 in our school district. A 504 is not specific to our school district. That's what they call it. It's just like the technical name for disability assistance, and anxiety falls under that umbrella. So we got approved for a therapist, and now he sees her weekly. I realized it was a problem when I tried to get him out there doing things in November. I would take him to activities, and he'd see the other children he was expected to engage with or even just be around, and he would become incredibly fearful, start shaking, crying, clutching onto me, and having what was probably like a borderline panic attack. I had bad separation anxiety when I was his age, but this was different and somewhat scary. I tried 2 times with a tennis clinic, never actually leaving him, of course. Then we spent the next few weeks just going to the facility and watching the tennis clinic from the lobby in hopes of making him feel more comfortable, because I figured, let's just tackle this with just common sense and trying techniques at home. It did not work. I tried a martial arts class with him where I was literally sitting a few feet away from him in a large open room, and he couldn't do that either. He just, when the class started, he just stood there frozen, and then he just let out this guttural scream. And he was backing me, and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, is that Aiden? And it was. And it's weird because it's just kids. You toss him into a group setting with a bunch of adults, and he's the life of the party. But he's afraid of children, which is interesting. At his last parent-teacher conference, which would have been when he was aged 3 3/4, I was actually given the feedback that he had chosen 2 friends to play with, which I knew. He had 2 best friends, and then he refused to play with the other children because he claimed he only needed the 2, and he would spend the rest of the time with the adults in the program. So I know that he's always preferred adults, but now he has a severe aversion to children. Yeah, he'd never been drawn to kids, but this was a new level of some guttural fear that he was displaying. I'm not playing dumb here. I'm not confused. I know this is partly his nature, but strongly compounded by my influence being scared myself and incredibly protective during the pandemic, and him being home for a year and a half, I guess, essentially on his own. I would do it again, though. I don't regret anything that I've done because I'm keeping my family safe, and I'm dealing with the situation by putting him in therapy. Of course, he loves his therapist because the therapist is an adult, but we're working on getting him comfortable going into group activities in hopes that he'll be ready for a 20-something person classroom for first grade versus his 8-child class this year, where he does now get along with and is friends with all of the students in his class. That was a process in itself, but the difference with that versus an after-school activity is that it's the kindergartner teacher's responsibility to help acclimate him to the classroom, whereas the tennis instructor's that's not their job. And getting him talking to the other kids in school and making friends, that actually took a month. He just spent the first month just observing them from a distance, and then he kind of broke his way in, which is great. For the first month, he only spoke to pretty much his teachers and the school nurse and the school admin because they're adults. I don't know. So setting up the 504, being concerned that Aiden's peers are out there doing swimming and karate and tennis and whatever else, and Aiden was at home playing with a 1 and then a 2-year-old, hanging out with his parents and aunt and grandparents, was draining for me because I hate that he was missing out He has a lot of potential, and I mean, like most kids, and he should be given the chance to reach it, to test out things and see what he's good at and just like have a life, you know? Plus I'm competitive, and I hated knowing that he was sitting home falling behind his peers and experiences while they were out there living life. I'm not worried about him academically because that's something we play with at home. But the social stuff, like, he's really, really lacking there, and it just has me concerned. So this kid's situation is just something else that has been taking a lot from me. And now that they are like essentially my whole life, it's just, it's a lot. So I figured that was worth mentioning just because since I'm here talking about just like social and general well-being and just like struggles that I'm going through right now. This all being said, it's hard to prioritize hair content when there is so much going on in the world and in my family. It just feels really frivolous. And I guess it's because it is. I mean, it's frivolous, but it matters. I mean, like, hair is important. Let's not pretend that it's not. But there are priorities, right? It's not like I cut off all my hair. It's just that I'm just not thinking about it anymore, and I'm just, like, not doing much with it. Talking about it all the time in the old world to me just seemed like the thing to do because it was such, like, it was so present in my mind all the time, and just, it's taken a backseat, if I'm being honest. And I think that's also possible because I've spent 2 years focused on my hair. So, like, I know what I'm doing with it now, and, like, I don't have to think about it as much. It's so much more difficult to record when I have, like, no agenda, so I'll just keep talking for now. As I've mentioned many times now, I left my job at the end of July, and I am just now in the end of March getting the hang of being with my kids all day. It requires a whole psychological and physical rewiring, and my life from an emotional well-being standpoint sort of sucks right now. Like, I'm being honest. I'm pretty miserable. But also, I do, in my feelings, recognize the privilege. I was, in fact, able to quit my job, which is a luxury. I have, you know, a nice home. My immediate family members are all still alive. Bills are paid. The kids are, despite what I've said, thriving, at least academically, and everything else will just catch up. I have a lot to be thankful for, and I am thankful for it. But getting up every morning at 6:40 in the morning, having had to get up at least twice during the night to use the bathroom because third trimester, then being on cooking, cleaning, watching kids, homeschooling, Aiden duty until bedtime around 11 p.m. It's a lot. It's an entire day, and I don't get, there is no modicum of self-care going on, and I acknowledge I could use it. In my head, 24/7, I am planning things, making lists, next to tears, dealing with a 5 and a 2-year-old for about 13 hours a day, planning for another baby. I've become a shell of a person at this point. I play with my kids, but I don't really enjoy it, but I think that's because I don't necessarily enjoy playing kid games. I don't really talk to my sister and my mother socially because I'm just always in a foul mood. Nick and I don't talk about anything much other than the kids, I guess, and a renovation that we're doing at home. But I mean, there's no issue there. It's just, it is what it is. The situation is what it is. It's not like we get any time to, like, talk amongst ourselves. He works 14 to 16-hour days himself. Then as soon as he's finished, he's helping with the kids. Something else I know I am very lucky to have. Nick is an amazing father. And not even just for a man, but for just like a person in general. Like, he would be a good mother, too. Saying this out loud, of course, I rarely ever acknowledge this to him. In my defense, though, that's largely in relation to this whole stereotype that men feel they need a prize for chipping in kids and housework. I don't praise good behavior. I only blow up at the bad. I bet that's frustrating because he tells me it is, and I can see that. But it's also just the way that I am. I don't get praised for everything that I do on a daily basis, and I do a lot. But I'm sure going to notice when my efforts are thwarted by drawers being left open, dishes being cleaned incorrectly, or other things being done wrong. I think that's more of just like a woman being often unreasonable, because I feel like this is like a trend. I mean, like, I'm not the only person like this, and I can't argue with that. But that's a whole different video. Definitely got a list or two on that subject. So anyway, I think I'm actually going to stop here. Never having really gotten to the point as possible. I might be getting contractions right now, like minor ones. As I said, I'm just talking here, sharing a bit more of my life and my thoughts, since it had always just been about hair and I still want to put out content. I would love to hear from you. Any connections, any experiences that you can relate to, or any differences or anything just like mentioning, or just any thoughts that you think are worth mentioning. Is it interesting or at all entertaining to just watch someone that you don't really know talk about themselves? I don't know. Let me know that also. Was this really boring for you? So I'm just going to end it here. I'm just going to go. So I guess bye, and subscribe if you haven't and you would like to. Have a good one.